Welcome, folks, to this edition of the 700 Club. It's enough water to fill up the Great Salt Lake. 11 trillion gallons. That's what Tropical Storm Harvey has already dumped on Houston, and there's more to come. That huge amount of rainfall has already led to catastrophic flooding throughout the Houston area.
The National Weather Service is warning that the rain in the days ahead could be life-threatening. CBN's Eric Rosales has been tracking the storm on the ground in Texas, and he joins us from near Houston. Eric, what's it like where you are?
Well, Terry, this tropical storm, I tell you, just continues to swirl around the state of Texas. As you mentioned, we are in Houston, and this is an example of what we're seeing a lot of out here is just cars stranded out in the middle of the road trying to get through the rising floodwaters. But I tell you, they receive so much rain so fast that the entire freeway system out here is just underwater. There's only a few ways to get in and out of the city, and thousands of rescues have taken place, and thousands of more people still need to be rescued. But I tell you what, through it all, as I've seen, people are relying on their faith in Jesus Christ in order to get them through this tragedy. With no electricity, members of Rock City Church in Flower Bluff, Texas, which is right next door to Corpus Christi, still gathered for Sunday's service. They use the power of God to lighten up their hearts and their minds and turn to God for help during this trying time.
So the work never stops for us as Christians. We know that. And we just get leaner and meaner. And we shine brighter and brighter in a dark world.
It's that faith of Christ that brought many literally out of the storm.
My church is barely standing anymore. It's the church got demolished. Our high school, it took a pretty big beating. I'm actually headed back over there as soon as I get some more diesel. Headed over there to Rockport right now, see if we can't help out a little bit more.
Late Friday evening, the Category 4 hurricane slammed into the Texas coastline hard, bringing howling 130-mile-per-hour winds combined with sheets of rain to cities like Rockport and Port Aransas, just a few miles north of Corpus Christi, where hundreds of thousands of homes are without power, and residents are forced to boil their water before drinking it.
It didn't get real until the wind started howling, and then you kind of sit there and go, this is really happening. There's nothing we can do. So we huddled up in the living room and hunkered down and just said some prayers, and luckily everything held up on our end.
But not for everyone. The storm has taken lives and snapped power poles like toothpicks, flipped boats as if they were toys, and left a path of destruction. Although Harvey quickly lost steam as it made landfall, dropping from a Category 4 to a tropical storm, it stalled, bringing dozens of tornadoes in and around Houston. This is what happens when you get too much water too fast. This is the freeway behind me. Yes, a freeway. It's at least 10 feet of water. Houston police say at least one woman died after she tried to get out of her car too fast due to the rising floodwaters and drowned.
And Lord, I just pray for this church as they begin to go out and share the love of Jesus, just like they did today, Father.
Now relief is on the way. CBN's own Operation Blessing is gearing up, talking and praying with local pastors on where to bring food and other non-perishables.
I mean, our equipment is pre-staged in Beaumont, Texas, just a few hours away. So when the roads are clear and the power lines are up, Operation Blessing will be moving in.
Right now, the mode has switched from surviving this hurricane to actually helping to rescue people and providing some relief. We are going to get together with Operation Rescue and Operation Blessing, that is, our own CBN's Operation Blessing, and 1,000 additional Texas National Guards have been called to the area to help with these recovery efforts because people are still stranded out here, and I tell you what they could really use right now is prayer.
Eric, what stands up in your mind? Do you have any examples of the way these people are responding to this storm?
Well, I tell you what, yeah, it's just pure devastation out here. You know, members of the Harris County Fire Department are just trying to get as many boats as they can. They're asking Texans to just bring out their boats, and they're actually using other private people's boats just to be able to get the thousands of people that still need to be rescued. Many are on top of the roofs just waiting there, and they have been for several days.
What are some of the most amazing things you've seen?
Well, I guess, Pat, it's the pure devastation. We've went through a number of towns. When we went through Corpus Christi, we went through Port Aransas and Refugio. These are little small towns, and it almost looked like small tornadoes just came through these towns and just ripped them apart. I mean, we were driving down the road, and a number of power lines are just down, and we're driving over them, and thankfully with the rubber tires we're okay. But it's just the pure devastation that we're seeing out here. That's the scary part, is trying to get to everybody who needs relief.
You know, Eric, I was involved very much as Katrina, and I know you were there too. New Orleans wasn't prepared for that storm that hit. It came as a great surprise. The next thing you know, those levees breached, and that terrible flooding. People were standing on their rooftops, and they were screaming for food and water. How is this compared to that?
Well, you know, it's completely different, Pat. You know, I mean, this one, it seems as if people were prepared for the very worst, and the worst is what they are getting right now. Members of FEMA and the National Guard, and they're even bringing in more of them, rescuers to people. The U.S. Coast Guard is out here. They're hoisting people off of the rooftops. It really is a community, a nationwide effort to be able to get these people to safe land, and it's a completely different, FEMA is here. FEMA is here, and they are providing relief. It's just a completely different atmosphere. People know that help is coming, and they continue to wait, but that's the thing. Texans are helping Texans as well. People are bringing their private boats, just rescuing people, and those are the stories that we hope to bring over the next couple of days.
Last question. How much is this going to cost? Does anybody have even a vague conception of what the damage is going to be?
You know, Pat, we don't right now. They're still assessing the damage. I mean, you got small little towns that I don't even know how they're going to have the economy to be able to bring them back to life. Some of these smaller towns that we were driving through, the devastation I just can't even describe. It's not only just trees down, but homes are completely destroyed. Many of these smaller towns, people are living in trailer parks and things like that, and trailer park after trailer park had just the RVs just turned over. It was just pure sadness out there, but we will continue to keep all those people in our prayers.
Thanks, Eric. They say it's the worst storm maybe in Texas history, certainly in the last 50 years. Unbelievable amount of rain, and more of it coming. Well, with us right now is Joe Bastardi. He's the chief meteorologist with the Weather Bill Analytics. And Joe, could you give us your take on this thing? How come this thing stalled and dumped so much water? Where did it all come from?
Well, first of all, as far as the strength of the hurricane at landfall, I believe it's the 7th strongest to make landfall on the Texas Gulf Coast. That area it made landfall in is notorious for major hurricanes. In fact, I always tell the story of Indianola, Texas. It was the greatest port on the Gulf Coast in the 1850s. 2 major hurricanes in a row hit it. It's near where Port Lavaca is. And down went Indianola, and they never rebuilt it there again. And that's how Galveston and Houston took over as the #1 port in the Gulf of Mexico. That area between Corpus Christi and Galveston is notorious for major hurricanes. The last one to hit in there was 1970. Hurricane Celia went in at Corpus Christi and had winds to 161 miles an hour at Aransas Pass. It was even stronger than this, but Celia kept moving west. When Carla hit in 61, kept moving northwest. This stalled, and the reason it stalled is, and I see storms stall all the time. In fact, the most famous example of a storm stalling was 1963 over eastern Cuba. Hurricane Flora dumped 100 inches of rain at Santiago de Cuba in 4 days, and Fidel Castro was accusing the United States of monkeying with the weather to try to destroy his island to get back at him for the Cuban Missile Crisis. This has happened back in '63. So storms do stall. You see crazy tracks all the time. What happened here? Well, of course, in our preseason forecast, we were saying this is going to be a big year for hits on the U.S. coast, not way out in the Atlantic, that they were going to try to intensify in close to the coast. Why? Because we recognize patterns this year that are similar to years in the past. So what happened is storm gets into the Gulf. Like many storms in the Gulf, it goes from nothing to a big storm in a very short period of time. This is not unusual. But when it got into Texas, it was blocked by what happened with the jet stream. We have an inordinate amount of cold air across the United States right now. So instead of having the usual ridge in the central part of the United States that allows these storms to continue moving west-northwest, had a big trough there. And what did it do? It stopped the storm from moving. So the storm's sitting there. Now it's going to come back out over the water. Fortunately, there's a lot of dry air around it to inhibit intensification. Unfortunately, it's getting back out of the water long enough, so it may have a chance late Tuesday and Wednesday before it comes back on shore between Galveston and Port Arthur to try to intensify again. And this brings up something that is very, very unusual. We've had so much rain around the Houston area, 2 feet of rain. That water is trying to flow into Galveston Bay, of course. Meanwhile, the southeast winds keep bringing water into Galveston Bay from the Gulf of Mexico through the inlets. There is a chance here, and something I'm worried about, that this thing gets east of Galveston. The wind turns to the north across Galveston Bay and tries to drive the bay into the city from behind. So it's almost like a pincer movement. So that's another part of this storm. We've been looking at this since last week, and we've been saying we think this was going to loop. And the reason I make a kind of forecast is my dad's a meteorologist, and he taught me to go back and look at past tracks. And I'll tell you what, folks, if you go back and look at some of the crazy things hurricanes do, they're not so crazy. They just respond to the atmosphere. You would see why this did what it did.
You forecast back in May that the hurricane, the drought would end this year, and we'd start to see more of these destructive storms. How'd you find that out? What was your clue?
It's very interesting. And a lot of the people pushing the global warming issue don't realize that the warming is mainly in the northern latitudes. It's not in the tropics. And what happens is that distorts the normal pressure pattern across the globe. And hurricanes, to get big hurricanes, you need high pressure across the north and lower pressure in the south. If you have very, very warm summers across North America and in the Arctic region, a lot of times the global wind oscillation, we call it, the mean sea level pressures are distorted. So you can get small, compact storms that can intensify. But if you notice the bigger ones, like for even Floyd in '99 and Irene, and even Katrina and Rita, as they came to the coast, they went from 5s to 3s. They weakened. That wasn't happening when the Earth was a little bit cooler. Now, I don't disagree with the idea that the Earth is warmed up a little bit. I think it's largely natural, so I don't want to get into that. But the result of that, no matter what's causing it, may have had a negative impact on storms hitting the United States instead of the hysteria that goes, oh, it's getting warmer, so there's going to be more hurricanes. So that's something that's actually in our forecast. If you go back and it's on our Weather Bell site, it will show you why we believed there would be a different pressure pattern setting up this year that was conducive to the United States getting hit.
Well, Joe, thank you for your analysis. It's right smack on. We appreciate it. And Joe's with Weather Analytics, Weather Bell Analytics, and we appreciate this insight. Wow.
It's so interesting, the whole how weather patterns are formed and what drives them and sustains them.
Well, when you're the victim of enough water to fill the Great Lakes, you're not interested in all that. Well, to switch gears just a little bit, Regent University has chosen the names for its sports team. Had a big rally over the weekend. They're going to have soccer, volleyball, cross country, track and field, and cheerleading. And these teams have a name. They're known as the Regent Royals, and they had a big pep rally over the weekend to introduce this new athletic program.
Yeah, that's pretty exciting. I know you're pumped about that.
I'm pumped about everything they're doing, but it's just really nice. And so I wanted to call them the Raptors because, but I got voted down. And I've got this hawk that flies around, and he's all upset because he didn't get chosen. He got voted down with a focus group.
Dive bombing your house.
Well, he's just so sad. He's flying around saying, "How come you didn't include me?" He was wrapped. But then Regent Royals, they're getting ready to take the field of combat in
I like that.
intercollegiate athletics.
Hey, I was just thinking as we were watching that flood information about what a great job Jody Geddes and all of our OB team are doing down there. And there are probably people who'd like to, you know, what they're saying right now is what you can do about this is to donate, to give, not send stuff, but to give money so that they can support the work being done. So if you'd like to be a part of that, you know, Operation Blessing has our disaster relief team, and they are down there right now, and we'd love you to be a part of giving to that. There's the information right there. Disaster Relief Fund, Operation Blessing, CBN Center, Virginia Beach, Virginia, 23463. Let's make a difference. You know, people talk about how amazing it is when those trucks roll into those places of disaster.
It lifts the spirits of everybody. And Jody Geddes, you can't say enough good things about that child. She works her head off 24 hours a day, and she's in there praying, and she's helping. Food, water. We've positioned showers, portable showers, blankets, and all kinds of water purification. So we'll have it. And you see the people lining up to get the service that we have.
There's no food or water anywhere.
Yeah,
so.
especially clean water. And we have water purification, huge tanks to do that, so they'll get clean water.